My best investment wasn't money, actually. It was getting a mentor. It was getting a mentor. That was really my best
What kind of mentor?
time investment, I would say. That was a time investment. And it really has helped me just have the courage to be bolder and go after bigger contracts and bigger clients. So I would say my mentor.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we are joined by Melody Gross. She is the founder of Courageous Shifts. Welcome to the show, Melody.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were really vibing like before the podcast too, and then you're telling me that you've been a coach for like 5 years. And
Yeah.
so for me, I always love hearing the origin story, the lore. And so let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah.
What was the moment that you realized that you not only wanted to be a coach, but turn it into a business? Tell me that story.
Yeah. So it has to do with raccoons. Let me just preface this by saying that it has to do with raccoons. So I
Raccoons?
had been, yes, raccoons, yes. So in 2020, I had started doing more speaking engagements and putting myself out there and talking about domestic violence. That's my niche. I speak about domestic violence. And I kept saying there's more that I want to do and provide survivors as well as organizations. And I just wasn't quite sure what that was going to be. So I remember being up a little late and just thinking, I was like, okay, well, what's my next move? What what's going to take me to the next level, or what do I want to offer? And so I went to sleep, and about, I would say 2, 3 in the morning, I hear screeching and scratching. So in 2020, I lived in a very different apartment, and somehow raccoons, although I lived on the second floor, got into my ceiling. And so one was on one end of the apartment and the other one was in the other end. And if they ever crossed paths, all hell broke loose. So that morning, they decided to get into a scuffle. And so it woke me
That's
up 3 in the
crazy.
morning. Right. They woke me up 3 in the morning, and I just was like, what the hell? And so finally they stopped, but I couldn't get back to sleep. And I sat there, and the answer just came to me. I swear to you, it just said coaching. I was like, huh. Now, I had worked with a business coach before. I know it's so weird, right? I worked with a business coach before. I've, looked into it a little bit, but that moment was the spark that said, coaching. And within like the next few weeks, I swear everything happened on purpose. I was doing a speaking engagement. I was on a panel, and my previous career was in marketing and communications. So I was on a panel about marketing and communications. And at the end of the panel, a woman walks up to me and she says, I would really love to talk to you about that, like about marketing. I want to market my business. And I said, we can talk, but I said, honestly, I'm trying to move away from that. And I really want to get more into speaking and coaching. And she says, funny, I'm a coach and I do coach training. And I said, seriously? She said, yeah, I'll certify you as a coach. And so that was how it started. Raccoons.
By the way, you're a great storyteller. That was such a great hook, by the way.
Thank
Like,
you.
I appreciate it. All right.
Awesome.
So let's talk about coaching for a second because there's a lot of
Yeah.
different types of coaching. So what kind of
hmm
coach are you and who are the people that you kind of help?
Yeah. So I don't know if I fall into one particular type of coach. I try to pull all of the skills. I do know that sometimes I move out of coaching a little bit and I have to reel myself in because I do believe a lot of what we experience has to do with our past experiences, our past exposure. And in coaching is very much present day to future. But every once in a while, I have to step into that, root work of why you may feel the way you feel, why you respond the way you respond, but then still bring it back to the present and then provide those like that coaching and guidance around the future. And I generally work with two groups. Usually they are, well, three actually, survivors of intimate partner violence. Generally, they've been out for a while. They're not like immediately in the experience. They've generally been out for 6 months, a year, and they kind of want to move to that next level, right? Then I also work with advocates who work with survivors because that secondary trauma of hearing those stories can bring a lot of stress. And also, we are talking about people who work at a nonprofit, and nonprofits are very stressful. I used to work at several nonprofits. They're very stressful and they don't pay enough. And so you balance all of that out, you put all of that together, it can be a huge stressor for someone who's already dealing with the trauma around helping survivors and victims and their children, right? So I work with them in how can they create a plan that gives much more balance between their professional life and their personal life. Because oftentimes their professional life is taken over. I've had clients who are like, yes, I leave work at 5, but when I get home, I'm still working. And I said, well, where's the balance for that? What about your loved ones? What about, so we talk through that and we develop a plan so that they can have much more balance. They are passionate about what they do. That's why they are advocates. But we know we need that balance, We need that balance. And then the final group that I work with is generally like leadership. So executive directors, CEOs of nonprofits. So again, it's that dealing with the trauma, but also the professional stuff of managing teams and still having that balance of their personal life too. So that's a big part of what my coaching is about, is ensuring that you have a healthy balance between your personal and professional while still being super passionate about what you do at the same time. Yeah.
That's quite a huge variety of people because, when I think about survivors and stuff, like it hits every single ethnic group, like all classes and stuff. It's like really interesting. So you must have a wide variety of like clients then, huh? In all different stages of life.
I do, absolutely. It's definitely all different stages. And, the beauty of it is I get to see that evolution as well, especially with survivors. I get to see that from that hopelessness to feeling empowered. And that's honestly the driving force for me. That's truly a driving force for me. So yeah, I love that.
So curious, like let's talk about the marketing. How do people like typically find you, and like what kind of marketing are you doing for your business right now?
Yeah. So I definitely pull into those previous skills of marketing a lot. So I use social media, of course, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I also do a lot of media interviews. So I pitch myself as a, expert to talk about domestic violence and life after abuse for survivors. So that's another way. And honestly, a lot of times it is really word of mouth, especially for survivors. Other organizations or people will point them in my direction and they'll come to me. The other thing that I do is I use my desire to speak and do speaking engagements. I'll use that in order to put myself out there. So attending conferences and doing workshops, and that kind of adds more folks into the pipeline.
I see. That's really interesting. Yeah, so you have a lot of different modalities and stuff too. That's amazing. As you're growing your coaching business, what kind of challenges did you kind of go through when it came to finding clients?
Oh, all of them. All of them, Kevin.
The rainbow.
One, I have a very niche topic, and is oftentimes one that isn't necessarily prioritized, especially for organizations. So I've run into many challenges, and honestly, even with the changes of the new administration, I've found many more challenges of how I'm getting into organizations that bring me in to work with advocates or work with their leaders. It's been a challenge. And so I'm always looking for new ways to do it, and maybe even pivoting or, doing more video content. I do find myself doing more video content. but I haven't found one thing that works. I think it's kind of like, let's try this. Let's try it for a while. Let's keep going, but let's also fold something else in. And that's really what I do. And I am not above cold emails at all. I'll be respectful because I get them too. And so sometimes I'm like, all right, where did you even remotely get this email? But I am not above that. I am not above asking for help and saying, hey, here's what I offer. Do you know anybody that would benefit from that? Or again, I use
Yeah.
that, get in with that speaking engagement first, and then like, actually, here's the other things that I do too, you know?
Yeah. That's amazing.
But yeah.
Okay, so people are finding out about you. And it
Yeah.
must be a really interesting kind of industry or kind of
Sector, I
type
guess.
of
Yeah.
coaching that you're doing, like with the yeah, sector. I don't yeah, maybe sector is the right word because it's not like a business type of like coaching where people are like, "Oh yeah, I love to give testimonials." A lot of these things are very like I would say personal and whatnot as well. And so I'm kind of curious about your different coaching modalities because I know some people do one-on-one coaching, some people do group coaching. What are your different coaching modalities for your
Yeah.
clients?
Yeah, so I've definitely done both. I've done one-on-one and I've done group coaching. And interestingly enough, I can still get testimonials. Sometimes people are like, I just want
Hmm.
to be anonymous, and that's fine. But other times they don't mind because, especially after going through the coaching with me, they feel much more empowered to tell their story and hold their truth. So
Yeah.
really, the testimonials
Yeah.
have not been an issue at all. They freely share
Nice.
them. Yeah, they freely share them because I think that's also a part of that healing, you know? That's also a part of their healing.
Mm,
And I like to use the hero's journey a lot so that people can see
yes.
themselves as the hero. And I think that's really important. So definitely one-on-ones and group coaching as well. Yeah.
Yeah. How does like I can't imagine like I'm kind of wrapping my head around the group coaching. What is it kind of like? Is it kind of like because people I'm sure people are like sharing really personal things and sensitive things, right? Is it kind of like I'm not saying it's the same vibe as Alcoholics Anonymous or any of these groups, or like even when my father died, I remember my mom going to like a loss type of group. Is it like how do you like control that container and
Yeah.
make sure it's safe, I guess?
Yeah. That's a really great point. It really is creating a container of safety. And I do that honestly by being vulnerable myself. I do that by sharing my own
Mm,
experience to kind of get them to support them and understand that I'm not just coming here to like, okay, I'm a coach and I want to help you. I'm a coach that's a survivor. I'm a survivor that's a coach. And so I use that vulnerability that I'm willing to share to create that container. Additionally, I don't record my coaching sessions. You know, I may
sessions.
take little notes here and there just for reference, but I don't actually do that. And I let them know this is confidential. And what we talk about is what we talk about. Take the lessons, right? You can take the lessons with you, but leave the stories, leave the personal things here. And that's been really beneficial. And also letting them know you can be as comfortable as you want and share just as much or just as little as you desire. I don't dictate how much you share. So really it's that vulnerability,
Yeah.
that confidentiality, and letting them know they can share just as much or just as little as they desire.
One of the things I would like your thoughts on is so a lot of coaches we talk to, they struggle with things like pricing and pricing strategies because that's where they struggle the most. And of course, you don't need to give any hard numbers or anything like
And that's
that.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
But especially since your sector is just like so, it's not like for example, it's not like a business. Like if I was a sales coach, right? Like there's a hard like number that you can attribute or price upon. But since we're dealing with things like domestic violence and all that, how do you structure your pricing? Is it like
Yeah.
hourly? Is it a retainer? Is it project? Like, yeah, I'm kind of curious how you structure it given your industry.
Yeah, so generally it's going to depend on the client's industry or sector or whatever. So for instance, I have a nonprofit rate. And so generally that is a package and it includes X amount of coaching sessions for this amount. And they can use all of them or they can use some of them, but the price stays the same, right? So those are generally for nonprofits. And I use the same thing for corporate clients who may bring me in. Generally, they're bringing me in more for consulting around like crisis and less about coaching. But every once in a while when they do, they have a higher rate. I do believe in pay equity. So that's really important for me. And what I stress to organizations is that one of the primary tools used by those who abuse is financial abuse. And so that means either, stopping someone from working or forcing them to work or all of these other aspects around economic and financial abuse. And so therefore, as a survivor, I'm very intentional about saying, this is my rate. This is how much I charge. We can discuss it, but I do have a clear understanding of how much I'm going to charge and why I charge that much. When I'm working directly with survivors, when I'm generally working with survivors, I am usually working through an organization, another nonprofit. And so they'll generally cover those costs as well. Or every once in a while, I have a survivor who they are much more established financially and they can actually pay. And I may have a range for them because, again, I understand the impact of financial and economic abuse on a survivor. So I don't necessarily have this is how much I charge everyone rate. I don't do that because, again, pay equity, people have, needs and responsibilities. And I never want to be a financial burden to someone. And also I want to make sure that I'm good as well too, right?
Yeah, of course, because if it's not sustainable for you, the whole operation and mission goes down too.
That's right.
So yeah.
That's right.
But that's really interesting how you tied it to I think the term you used, was it financial abuse?
Yeah, financial abuse. So even my own
Can you tell me
experience.
more about that?
Yeah, sure. So with my own experience, financial abuse looked like not paying his portion of the bills or not contributing to the household consistently. Financial abuse can also look like disrupting my ability to work. Or for instance, I wanted to go to get my master's and it was always making me feel guilty about not spending time with him during school, even though I'm trying to better my education. So those are some tactics that are used. Others can be, again, not allowing someone to work at all or taking their paycheck, even though they work.
Oh.
Yeah, it can also look like not allowing them to go to school or, college or better their education. It can look like calling their employer and accusing them of things or things like that. So financial abuse it occurs in about 99% of all intimate partner violence relationships. So someone who's experiencing some form of financial and economic abuse that really has a long-term effect. For women in an abusive relationship, it's a loss of over $100,000 a year. In a lifetime, in a lifetime.
Okay, got it. Man, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious for these organizations, right? Because it sounds like you do have you mentioned nonprofit rates and then you have probably for-profit organizations. I'm very curious about what's the incentive for a business or an organization to invest in your services, I guess. And I'm just curious from the benefit of their point of view.
Yeah, so what they've shared with me is that they have a desire to support their employees who may be having a challenging time. And I applaud them with that. They may not necessarily have a full understanding or full scope of what domestic violence entails, but they want to do something to support their employees. For those who are providing a service to survivors, they want to try other ideas beyond just counseling or group sessions. How can we incorporate something else? Because every survivor is different and they're going to have different experiences and they're going to use different techniques too for their healing, for their empowerment, for their life after abuse. And so for me,
Mm,
it's incorporating these different tools that has been beneficial to me and they've seen it as beneficial as well.
that's
Yeah.
interesting. That's awesome. Yeah, because I'm sure, like, yes, there's probably some businesses who have a personal like connection to this too, and or a personal cause, right, which they want to help their own employees with. But it's also really interesting because, like, in my mind, I'm just like, okay, well, let's say we're dealing with a pure capitalist like business, right? They
Yeah,
don't care about like a lot of causes, but I'm sure you could tie it to things like productivity, retention of your employees, and
exactly.
all that sort of stuff too. Okay, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I talk, especially when I'm doing consulting, this is a little different, but especially for consulting, I get to the bottom line. It's costing, what we
Yeah.
don't realize is domestic violence costs our economy, I want to say it's about $8 billion a year in the US. And yeah. And so a lot of times what I have to do is go to a business and say, here's how much not addressing domestic violence is costing your company. And sometimes there was one organization, one company, they had 2,000 employees and about half of them were women. And when we calculated the numbers based on productivity, absenteeism, health, and medical, not considering anything else like safety and security, but just those three, productivity, absenteeism, and healthcare costs. It was about $210,000 a year that they were losing. So my goal
Interesting.
is to connect that, protect your money source, right? But also protect your employee and provide support for them too.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I'm glad we talked about the connection to the bottom line too. Even
Yeah,
though I feel very strongly about like things like domestic abuse and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure full-blown capitalists are like, well, what's the bottom line, you know? And
right.
I'm just like, okay.
Absolutely.
It's kind
Absolutely.
of cool that we talked
Absolutely.
about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you got to know who your audience is.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay. And so like I do want to talk about your future goals too. Like, where do you want this coaching business to take you in the next few years? Do you have any secret ambitions, secret dreams that no one knows about? Have you
Yeah,
thought
I,
about
I
things like
do.
scaling?
That no one knows about. That's so funny. I do. I want to build my coaching company up so that it is a coaching and speaking company and is really led by survivors of intimate partner violence because we all have our unique experiences. And so I want them to come in and provide coaching and have the choice of who they want to work with for their coaching. Because sometimes I may not be a good fit, right? I'm a New Yorker. I talk a little loud. Some people, that's not good for them. But then I may have someone who's like, who is absolutely like, so tell me more. And they can be very calm and collected. I want you to be able to find that person too. Or someone who has more lived experience than you, right? If you're a black gay male, you may want to have a coaching who is also a black gay male. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so that's really where I want to scale so that people have options when they come to me and they say, hey, I really love your coaching and I've heard great things. How can we work with you? But we have these unique circumstances. And now I can say, well, here are several other coaches that may be a great fit for you too that are part of my team.
Love that. And so giving people options that might better relate to their situation. That's
Yeah.
interesting. And
Yeah.
so, like, as you're thinking about this, right? It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like you're thinking about hiring more and more coaches. But what are
Yeah.
some, as you're thinking about this vision, what are some challenges or bottlenecks that are top of mind for you as you're
Yeah.
kind of going toward this vision?
Yeah, it goes back to our environment right now. Even though we know that domestic violence is a societal issue, I think there are some people who still hold beliefs that it's just a personal thing. And so I find that there's hesitation in investing in it because they don't necessarily see it as an issue for them. And honestly, it's why, shameless plug, is why I wrote one of my upcoming books, is because I want people to understand that actually it is everyone's problem. And here are some ways in which you can support survivors, even as a friend, a family member, a neighbor or employee and colleague. Yeah. So those are that's the biggest challenge, is like changing that misconception about who domestic violence actually impacts.
I see. But
Yeah.
like people, yeah, because I can imagine like in certain organizations, they're just like, well, it's not really our problem. I don't see it really affecting our business. It's kind of not our lane and stuff. Yeah, I could see that.
And what I
Interesting.
often say to that is 27% of workplace violence incidences are directly related to domestic violence. So that means that, for instance, you and I are married. I've been very abusive and controlling towards you, and you decide you've had enough and you want to leave. The most dangerous time for a survivor is after they leave. And so you've left me and now I want to harm you. And I know that if you're not home, you're at work. And so I'm coming to your workplace. And that is a danger to everyone. Yeah.
I see. That's a really interesting point. The other thing I'm very curious about too is like you mentioned hiring different types of people and stuff. How are you thinking about hiring these people or finding these people?
Yeah, so I generally use a lot of coalitions, statewide coalitions or DV organizations have a speakers bureau. So I generally will reach out to them. It's maybe someone that I've spoken on a panel with before or have met before, and they are actually interested in coaching too, or they are coaches. And so it's just
Nice.
another way to engage them. So yes, I generally use domestic violence speaker bureaus.
Okay, cool. Very curious on that. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on to our next segment. This is kind of new. I'm always very curious about people's investments, and I want to play a game. It's called First, Last, Best, Worst. So
First,
what
last,
this is
best,
in
worst.
terms of business, and I'll help remind you. So basically, we're gonna focus this on business investments. It could be coaching, training, marketing, hiring people, anything, right? But we're gonna focus on business investments. So, what was your first business investment ever?
What was my first business investment?
Yeah, you
Gosh,
remember?
I feel like it was a business coach. Yes, it was a business
Mm,
coach. I don't remember exactly how much it was. I will say it was not worth it. It wasn't worth it.
why was
Unfortunately, it
that?
was not worth it. I did not really leave feeling motivated or directed to like a better business model. That was my first time investing in it, and
Mm,
they were great at marketing, but they weren't great at execution, in my opinion. So that was a tough lesson to learn. Yeah.
okay. Last investment.
My last business investment, I would say, well, they kind of came at the same time, but a developmental editor for my books and the graphic designer for the book covers. So yes, but I hired a developmental editor for the books. Yeah.
By the way, some of these, if they overlap, that's totally cool too.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
This is fun.
Best investment. Yeah, it brings out stories, right?
My best investment wasn't money, actually. It was getting a mentor. It was getting a mentor. That was really my best
What kind of mentor?
time investment, I would say. That was a time investment. And it really has helped me just have the courage to be bolder and go after bigger contracts and bigger clients. So I would say my mentor.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. How about worst investment? I know there's a silver lining for every single investment, but something maybe you wish you got your money back from.
Yeah, it would probably be that business coach. It would probably be that
Okay.
business coach. Yeah. Yeah, that would be something that I wish I had gotten back.
Now, I'm very curious, like as we talk about all these investments, how has your decision-making process changed over the years, like with investments? Because I'm sure a lot has changed from that first business investment with that program you kind of regret to your recent best one, right? How has that changed over years?
Honestly, best outcome or change that occurred is that I focused less on my business and more in my thoughts of my business or my subconscious thoughts of my business. What beliefs was I holding about my business? Meaning, I held the belief that things were hard and I needed to like hustle, hustle, hustle to get clients. when really I decided that actually, no, clients come to me with ease. Clients that need me are seeking me out. Everything I do aligns with finding these clients. So it was much more of the internal work than the external
Mm.
tactics, even strategy. It was really what beliefs am I holding about myself as a speaker, as a coach, as a consultant that I may need to let go so that I can reach that next level. That has been the best thing for me, honestly. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, because no one really, I think a lot of times the inner work or deeper work that it gets often gets ignored a lot of times because it's not like the sexy revenue hack that is like short term, right? It's like these beliefs, people don't realize that we're the driver, we're like the pilot of this like business, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of times we self-sabotage because of these beliefs and
There
because
you
of
go.
things like our reticular activating system. If we believe
Let's
our
talk
business is
about it.
like it's hard, then we're gonna
Yes.
make it hard so that we believe
Yes.
that we're right. So yeah, it's
That's
kind of
right.
interesting. Yeah.
Yes. That is exactly it. You're speaking my language.
Man, we definitely probably follow the same people and read the same
Yep.
books and all that sort of stuff. I
Yeah.
gotta talk to you offline.
Yes, let's
Yeah.
do it.
Well, Melody, how can people find and connect with you?
Yes. So I am on all platforms as I am Melody Coat. That's IAMMELODYCO. LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I generally stick to like TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can find me there. My website is courageousshift.com. So I'm really easy to find. Honestly, if you Google Melody Gross, I'm proud of myself of doing so much work that it comes up.
Yo, I'm surprised that your SEO guy wasn't like your SEO person wasn't your best investment, man.
I haven't had one. I've not used one yet, but you know what? I may need to reach that next level. Yeah,
That's
that's
awesome.
awesome.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your
Yeah.
insights. I think what was really interesting about this podcast, by the way, Melody, was just that you're able to take something that is a big problem, but it's like very hard to financially tie something. Like because unfortunately a lot of people are motivated by things like money or revenue and stuff like that. But you're able to tie it and connect the dots for people why this is actually a bigger problem than we realize actually that's affecting us directly. So I really appreciate your insight on that. Personally, I'd never really thought about it too much until this conversation. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening and again, it's such a niche topic, but I really appreciate that you brought me on here to have this conversation. The more we have the conversation, the more we can remove the stigma. So thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, Melody. Cool.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.